Hello and welcome to another episode of The Exchange.
On today's show, we'll be taking a look at how content we are with how we look. We nip, cut, tuck and deprive, all so that we can achieve that look. But at what point do we become content?
Developing a healthy body image is important, but is it achievable in today's media-saturated society?
Society is made up of people of different sizes and shapes. From an early age, we're bombarded with what a good body looks like. But what happens if we don't reflect that? A negative body image, as well as an eating disorder, could develop. In Australia, it's estimated that almost 1 in 10 people live with an eating disorder. So where does the problem start? How can we develop a healthy sense of body image as a society?
Joining us on today's program is social worker Roberta Honigman. Roberta has clinical and research experience in the area of body image disturbance, specifically relating to patients seeking cosmetic, surgical and medical procedures. Roberta is also the author of Living With Your Looks. Welcome, Roberta.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Certainly is.
Also joining us on the panel is Christine Morgan, who is the CEO of the Butterfly Foundation, a national charity that supports and advocates for everyone affected by eating disorders. Great to have you with us, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get into this. Would you say that by and large Australians are content with how they look? Let's start with you, Christine.
That is such an easy question, and the answer is no, no and no.
Okay.
And in fact, the levels of discontent, if we look particularly at our young people, continue to rise. The National Youth Survey that's done by Mission Australia every year continues to show that negative body image, which is how we feel about ourselves, is just continuing to rise for our young people.
Wow, it's pretty tragic, isn't it? Is that your experience as well, Roberta?
Yes, it is. I see quite a few young people in my practice who are very dissatisfied with the way they look, and they are so dissatisfied and desperate that they're actually looking to seek cosmetic procedures to change their appearance, and these are young people.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that just absolutely disturbed me was when I heard a 12-year-old the other day talk about which friends had six-packs and which didn't.
Yes.
And I said, are you categorising these friends with six-packs and not six-packs? I mean, is that something that you hear out there a lot, Roberta?
I don't know about the 12-year-olds with the six-packs, but certainly there are different parts of the body that are sort of,
Desirable?
like more, they're considered undesirable actually.
Oh, okay.
And people go seeking surgery to try and change that, to make themselves, I suppose, in a sense, normal, or what they perceive is
You
normal.
can have surgery to get a six-pack, can't you? And
I'm
all
sure
of
you
this
can.
sort
You can have surgery to do
I'm
it.
very happy with my two-pack, personally.
Yeah, I'd say I have a six-pack. I have a six-pack, but it is on ice and it has not melted yet. It's in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere trying to get out.
After this.
Yes.
But seriously, what are some of the? I mean, we kind of put this in a woman's domain, but more and more we're seeing this in guys as well.
And I think why that is happening is that it sort of starts with a premise that I'm not happy with how I look. And what I mean by not happy is this isn't right for me to be successful. So my value is tied up with it. For us girls, we've actually had an ideal body shape and size. It's been around for about the last 25 years, and it's skinny, skinny, skinny. We want to be thin. So we feel not great, and we've got an ideal to aspire to. What's happening with the boys is that they're starting to feel increasingly, I don't look right. I need to have a six-pack to show that I'm masculine and I'm therefore successful. And we've now got that ideal body shape that they're going for. So guys, probably 10, 15 years ago, they just kind of want to look better. Now they know what they want to aspire to.
And I guess, I mean, you're a guy. Do you feel?
Thank you for noticing.
Do you feel that pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you see pictures everywhere.
Like, do you feel it daily, or is it?
Oh no, not every day. I mean, I'm reasonably happy with the way I look. I aspire to be the fittest and healthiest I can be for a man of my age. So I'm not trying to compare myself, for example, with the picture of a guy on Men's Health or Men's Fitness magazines. Because
which are photoshopped anyway.
That's exactly right.
But I can't look like one of those anyway because I'm older than the guys that are on there, and I'm not part of the 2% that might be genetically blessed in that way anyway.
Which is a whole point, Roberta. Is this whole Photoshop look, this Men's Health, for example, I mean, what is that doing to society?
I think it's just creating false images. It's false messages, the wrong message. I mean, it's a matter of actually what is normal, what is attractive. And we're being told and we're being fed, and unfortunately it is often by the media, because they're selling products on behalf of organisations that want to make a profit. I mean, a lot of this is driven by the media. And, you know, when you buy magazines, you're buying a message.
Yes.
And unfortunately, sometimes for some people, that creates enormous pressure that is just not attainable or even possible.
So the media are a part of it. What else is feeding into this
I
negative body image?
I think it is, we truly, if you kind of bury underneath all the layers that we talk about, I think for many, many, many people, they do actually think that the way we look will affect whether we're successful or not.
Yeah.
And our little people are picking that up. But it's not just little people. You think of a woman who's just given birth to a child. Now, the focus so often isn't on this wonderful little being that's been created, but it's how quickly can I lose my baby weight?
Yes.
And the focus is on her success is deemed to be if she gets an appropriate figure back.
Yes.
Well, she's just given birth.
Yeah.
So I actually think we have got right quite deeply down this connectedness between looks and how we value a person.
And is that because, you know, getting back to what you're saying about, say, a woman who's just given birth and everything, we see these examples amongst famous people
Yes.
who within, say, 2 months of giving birth to a baby are back to their slim, gorgeous figure. But, of course, they've got their own chef, they've got their own personal trainer, and, of course, for the 99.9% of us, that's not a possibility.
And if you think about it, so say that's quite a vulnerable time in your life. You know, you're trying to cope with a new being, you're trying to cope with how you're feeling, the hormones are raging,
Yes.
and you read a magazine that actually uses words like success and attractive and isn't she fantastic, based around another woman who's given birth who looks a certain way. And you're feeling really fragile, you're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling exposed and not great. What are you going to aspire to? What is being told is successful?
And what are we doing as women? Like, are we breeding into this? Because my thought would be, tell the woman to be healthy, make sure she's focusing on if she's feeding the baby, you know, doing that, and obviously be, you know, eat nutritious meals, but don't worry about the weight loss too quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
But the message of the yummy mummy, I mean, this is now what you aspire to. You know, I laugh as I'm walking along the street, reflecting back on, you know, my children and having babies years ago. Now we've got the sort of the three-wheelers and everybody walking in there in their, you know, gym gear and up and down the street. And I don't know, I mean, it's lovely, it's wonderful, it's healthy, good on them, they're walking, they're out, which is probably much better for their mental health than being at home nursing a screaming baby. But there comes a limit as to whether it's actually, you know, achievable. I mean, I think also the other thing that people don't really acknowledge is the genetics. You know, if you come from a family of 5'3", oh, what's that? Low, I don't know. I'm from the wrong era. Centimetre.
I'm below 5'3",
So
so be
anyway,
careful
short people with short
Each
limbs.
centimetres,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So if you come from a family where Aunt May, back in 1850, started it, and that everybody's born in looking like that, how are you possibly going to then be a tall, lanky, you know, willowy creature if it's just not genetically viable?
And if you've tied you feeling successful to looking a certain way and you can't actually do it unless you do something really drastic like surgery or really bad dieting or really bad exercise. And the focus kind of has shifted away from the unique spot each of us holds on this planet to be ourselves. And we don't focus on being our unique selves. We focus on, can I please look like somebody else?
The individuality sort of
It's kind of got lost.
Yeah, it's lost. It's lost.
Well, photoshopping was mentioned a moment ago, media, internet, all of that sort of thing. Is there anything good in any of this? Or is it all ultimately a negative thing?
Good. It's an interesting word, good. Look, they're selling a message. It's a means of getting a message across. I think it's what we take out of it and why we need to look at it in a certain way. That's the concern. I don't know whether good or bad is really the issue. I don't know whether you agree, but it's just a matter of why they feel it's necessary to actually sell appearance in that way or sell health.
I think that is really where it gets to. So photoshopping is, you start from the premise that it's not good enough. And if it's an accurate representation of you or I, we're not good enough. So it has to be changed in order to be more acceptable.
Yeah, I guess it depends on whether it's accurate as in permanently accurate versus a temporary problem. So for example, if you've got a birthmark, well, that's part of who you are.
Yes.
But say you're about to get married and you've got this massive pimple that Windex won't fit.
yes.
I mean,
We've been there.
I mean, why not just get rid of that so you're not looking for time and eternity at your wedding photographs?
Yes.
And
Yeah, a pimple is a pimple, and
Yes.
a pimple will go.
Yes.
But when you're dealing with parts of your appearance or your anatomy that can't just disappear with Windex or without it Windex, you will seek some other form of altering your body. And depending on when and how and what your motivation and expectations are, that's going to be whether you're deemed a success or not, or you deem that procedure a success.
And I think if you look at the fact that we know there are girls as young as 8 who are taking selfies and putting them out there on Instagram, saying at 8 or 10 years old, okay, world, what do you reckon of what I look like?
How many likes can I get?
And what does that do when it doesn't, like, well, A, if it comes back positive, that's not great. And if it comes back negative, you don't have the maturity, do you, as an 8 or a 10-year-old
that is the
to
whole
cope
thing.
with all of that?
Yeah, and that whole sexualisation of appearance is really a big issue. Because I think that maturity or the lack of maturity and the ability to understand the ramifications of what all that means, it escapes them. It's not really, they're not ready for it. And
We need to take a break. Love what you're saying, and we'll come back and discuss a little bit more. I was just thinking, though, as we go to a break, how much Christy wants the photoshopping technology for our wedding photos.
Please.
Because I had this dreadful 90s
thing.
mo. And like
now
this
we're talking.
hairy caterpillar. We need to get rid of that. Then we can live with the
You
looks.
know what? I can suddenly see there might be a positive way to use photoshopping.
there is a chance.
It's a chance.
We'll be back with more and Street Talk right after this.
Do you think people are happy with how they look in general?
A majority, I'd suppose so. The market for makeup and piercing and tattoos is pretty large. I'd say body image is pretty low. But as a whole, I'd say everybody I know or talk to is pretty happy with their image.
I think not really, because everybody has got imperfections, and they're mostly the people around who tell them that that doesn't look good on you. So I think some of them are happy, but mostly I would say no.
I think these days there's lots of misconceptions, and especially women and society, they feel pressured to look a certain way.
Oh, I think generally, yes.
I think generally they are. I think there's quite a few people that compare themselves to others, which is never a good idea, but yeah, normally people are quite content and happy in themselves, I think, yeah.
I suppose it depends on the person. I think a lot of people have very false confidence.
Yes and no. Our generation, well, my age, sort of 20 to 26, like we try to impress everyone, and everyone does things that they don't really want to do.
I'm happy.
For those who think otherwise, what do you think it's going to take for them to be happy?
Probably a different TV, marketing, magazine, images, everything that we see around us. Just how they project it to the public.
Maybe less comparisons, less consuming, and just more of a freedom, more happiness in themselves, I suppose.
Less stress, little bit relaxing time, bit social, out from our work.
Yes.
Instead of spending on products, spend some time on real happiness, where you can find some time for yourself, which we are lacking these days.
I suppose to feel good about themselves inside, more so than outside.
Everyone just needs to be themselves and stop trying to impress everyone else.
Self-confidence. I think they should just be happy with who they are.
It's basically how you feel from inside. If you're feeling good from inside, obviously you will always look good. And a great smile always work.
There you go, this is the Great Smile. Welcome back, discussing the topic of being content with how you look. And we've got social worker Roberta Honigman and the Butterfly Foundation's Christine Morgan. And Sandra, our Street Talk reporter, welcome.
Hi,
Good
you're
to have
looking
you.
great, by the way. Absolutely fabulous.
That's important.
Thanks.
I must say, out of the 8 people that you interviewed, 4 said yes, they thought people were happy. 2 said no, and there was 2 that were questioned. I was actually sort of an either or. I was surprised at that. I thought more people would say that people were not happy with how they looked.
Yeah, and the ones that said are not happy generally tended to be more female. I don't know if you noticed that as well.
Yes.
Whereas the guys actually said, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, all right,
should be right, mate."
should be all right."
Yeah.
So the girls were the ones that found a little bit of dissatisfaction with how they look. But also, what I thought was quite interesting is there had to be a change in what we see in imaging, in media, and that's because that's where the comparisons start. I just found it interesting this week. I saw an article that the latest rage is the belfie, so a selfie of your butt. And butt augmentation.
Run out of bits to do.
Yeah, now we're focusing on the butt. So the butt used to be something that needed to be skinny because you mentioned the skinny factor, but now it's all about it being big.
Is this another one for surgery?
It is.
There's already butt implants. Don't panic.
So things shift all the time with fashion, obviously. So how do we keep up?
And also performers and artists, the singers who have the booty. I mean, that's a fashion thing, and a lot of appearance is based on fashion and what the trend is at the time.
Well, when you talk about fashion, I mean, you look at Rembrandt's beauties, and actually they had very small bosoms and very big booties, very big bottoms, and people thought that was gorgeous, whereas, they don't, so it is a fashion.
But it seems to shift. You're talking about, several hundred years ago, and it shifts almost by the decade, it seems to.
One of the fashion things that I'm finding is that I got such a shock with our daughters when they talk about the thigh gap and the knee gap what are some of the other trends that you're finding out there?
The bikini bridge.
The bikini bridge.
The bikini bridge.
What is the bikini bridge?
The bikini bridge is where, when you're lying on the beach, your hip bones, you have to be sufficiently slender so your hip bones protrude higher than your stomach.
Wow.
So where your bikini sits across,
I felt
there's a bit of a dip.
And who came up with this, may I ask?
Look, unfortunately, I think it's amongst the young girls. It's amongst. You see, we come back to saying
It started
what's
somewhere,
fashionable.
though. This is a media-driven thing, or is this
Look,
just
no,
a generation?
I
guys.
think we have to be careful to not too much blame the media.
Yeah.
I think the media is a social barometer. I think it reflects what a lot of us are thinking. So, yes, in some instances it does lead, but I think it also reflects. And I think that really this, we're talking about what's fashionable, and for whatever reason it is at the moment, this drive to skinniness is what is there. So it becomes quite competitive about how can I prove I'm skinny? I can prove I'm skinny if I've got a bikini bridge or a thigh gap. That means I'm skinny.
Yeah. So who changed Ken and Barbie? I mean, they're looking different these days.
Oh, they are looking different these days. And you should see Ken. You should see Ken, because Ken about 10 years ago was angular, sort of like broad shoulders, kind of skinny waist. Yeah, pretty, whatever. Yeah. But I looked at his back and it was nice and flat. 2014 Ken, he's ripped. He's got muscles. And you turn him around to the front, he's got them on the front, he's got them on the back. And that is what our young kids are playing with. And that's the difference.
It's crazy. And maybe, Roberta, you can speak into this. Like, Barbie used to be Barbie. And then people said, oh, she'd have a sore back. I mean, I think that was really not the biggest problem. But breast augmentation was the leading cosmetic surgery. And now it's liposuction, which comes back to the weight thing.
Yeah, there's changes and there's trends. I mean, in fact, I think they said that if you tried to stand Barbie up, if she was a real woman, she'd fall flat in the face because the proportions were unsustainable. So
was she modelled on Dolly Parton?
I think she was well before Dolly.
Have you seen Barbie at 50?
She is a Dolly, though.
Have you seen the cartoon Barbie at 50? And she's letting it all hang out.
But
she's saying, I'm over it.
Yeah.
She had a meltdown, right?
Barbie's had a meltdown.
Right, okay.
Barbie
kicked in.
Gone rural.
But it's beyond just the liposuction. What concerns me is also this trend to push the bariatric surgery, where there's the stomach stapling or the taking a piece of the stomach out to reduce the amount of food that a person can take in and therefore lose weight. And what's concerning, I've met quite a few people who've had that done and they've got an enormous amount of loose skin. So they then are forced to have more surgery to give themselves, it's almost like a dressmaker taking in some fabric because that's what it is, it's hanging, and they don't feel as though they've lost enough weight because they've still got all of this loose skin hanging. So
and
that then creates a bigger problem because you've then got the scarring as a result of that sort of extreme surgery.
And then if you put the weight back on, which unfortunately
happens,
so many people do, because there's this assumption that we eat purely because we are hungry.
Yes.
In fact, Very few people do. We eat for a whole range of reasons. And if the reason that you're carrying weight which is above your most healthy weight has to do with more psychological reasons than not, going and having surgery and just reducing your appetite or reducing your capacity for food doesn't stop what's happening in the head. And so the complications that come from bariatric surgery when they haven't actually addressed the psychological issues is really health threatening. That's horrific. And people will just, what they do is they just pour liquid chocolate and drink that down.
Mars bars is
Vitamin Mars bars.
Yeah.
Because, because that compulsion is still there. You don't remove that kind of connectedness to a substance which is comforting you just by chopping off a part of your body.
That is staggering, isn't it? We need to go to a break. I just want to just quickly get your take on one of the comments made by one of the first girls on Street Talk, and that was in regard to body piercings, tats and all that sort of stuff, and that someone that got all those things had low body image. Is that normally correct or not correct?
I don't know. I think that takes it into a different sort of an area. It's almost like some sort of a belonging to a particular group. Not cult, but there's an aspect of appearance that look at me that really I don't know about body image and self-esteem. Probably body image, sure, but I'm not sure about the self-esteem.
Okay.
But I don't know. That's always been an area that's a sort of a grey area.
Right. Okay, great. Sandra, thank you for popping in.
Great to be here.
It's great. I'm going to take a belfie. We're going to take a break. See you back right after this on The Exchange. Welcome back. We're chatting with Roberta Honigman and Christine Morgan about being content with how you look. And Roberta, you've written this wonderful book. I've had a quick read through it, Living with Your Looks.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the book, why you wrote it, who's it for?
Well, I co-wrote that with Professor David Castle, who works mainly in the area of body image, body dysmorphic disorder, which is considered to be when people feel that they're extremely ugly. So it's very much the thin edge of the wedge of body image discontent and concern. And it was really just informing people, because it seems as though even though this disorder's been around since the 1600s, or acknowledged since then, that there's a lot more of it these days because people are trying to do more to improve the way they feel about how they look, their body image, and that means seeking surgery, seeking procedures, extreme dieting, extreme exercising, and it's just needing to understand the impact that that sort of extreme has on a person's behaviour and feelings.
I mean, I think sometimes it's actually not the actual physical looks, but if somebody has a sullen or a pouty look, that is extremely unattractive, and yet a pleasant demeanour, no matter what shape your nose is or your lips are, is attractive.
Exactly. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And I think we all know people who are what we call comfortable in their own skin. They're themselves. And they look after themselves, they look great. You can't quite put your finger on what the X factor is, but they're comfortable in themselves.
Yeah.
They're attractive. So is that one of the things that could be done? What are the other things that you would suggest that people can do to help them feel better about the way they
You know
look?
what I'd do? I think if I just did one thing, I'd say every time you feel like saying something negative about a part of your body and trying to change it, why don't you just step into thinking about something good about your body that you like and enhancing it. Use the energy in that moment to enhance something that's good about what you look like, rather than trying to change something that you think doesn't look great.
Fascinating you say that. I was away with a girlfriend who'd had a melanoma removed from her leg, and she was wearing her bathers, and she said, "Oh, I feel my legs are fat." I said, "You know, this time last year we didn't even know if you're going to be having a leg."
Exactly.
That's it exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Celebrating that is so much more important.
I think it was interesting too, just to listen to the Street Talk, how there was reference to happiness. And I think that happiness and reflecting on internal feelings, rather than always worrying about having the external reflected back to you, it seems to have become less of a fashionable thing. And people don't have an opportunity to spend a lot of time with themselves. I mean, even going for a walk, getting yourself out of your own headspace and out of your physical space, and just making yourself aware of what's going on around you can really distract a lot of negative feelings.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think our bodies are given to us to enable us to live our lives.
Yeah.
They don't define our lives.
Yes, that's
Perfect.
very
That
true.
is a very good
statement.
And a good place to finish as well. Christine and Roberta, thank you so much for your time
Thank you.
today. And thank you for joining us on The Exchange. Please go to our website for a fact sheet, as well as more information about our show. Hope you can join us next time.
See you then, and live well in your own skin.